we have a really exciting topic to discuss. A super exciting topic to discuss. You want to join for this one? There's a lot to discuss, and I have a surprise for you guys at the end of this video. So you gotta stay tuned, and I'm gonna be telling you guys the surprise. Thank you so much. 6255 on Instagram. He says, "Happy Friday, love the outfit." Thank you. Yes, this is my baby doll outfit. Okay, so you guys, if you can hear me and see me, type in USA across platforms, type in USA. We're going to be discussing the Trump strategy in immigration enforcement, and I'm going to be explaining a lot to you guys in this video. This is going to be a very informative and educative session. So please type in USA, USA. I don't see anybody on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn typing in. If you're watching across those platforms, please type in USA. You guys, maybe I should say, let me give you a little story before we jump into today's video session. This is a brand new day where I'm using my legal name, AK Poku. I'm still changing it across certain federal agencies, but some of it is already done. So it's a very wonderful day. Yes, thank you all for all the congratulatory messages. Some of you already know I've been using my maiden name. I didn't bother to change it for the past 11 years, but I've been known socially as AK Poku, but I made it legal yesterday. And so it's going to be reflecting across many of my identities, in systems and in agencies and across documents. Okay, so I think that you guys can see me and hear me. I'm seeing USA on Instagram. I'm not seeing anybody type USA on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Please type it in. I have a surprise for you at the end of this video. You want to stay tuned until the very end. So, as many of you know, Trump has been using something called, or something we are going to call, a two-track enforcement strategy. And what he's doing is that he is doubling down on interior enforcement, meaning he's deporting people who are already in the United States. And at the same time, he's using a track 2 system where there's border and visa restrictions or blocking even immigrants from entering the United States, just really tightening who is able to enter the United States. So this is his two-track enforcement strategy, blocking entry on one side and accelerating or fast-tracking deportations inside on the other side. Okay, so this is the dual front immigration crackdown. And we're going to be discussing something that has been trending this week and last week: the medical health-based inadmissibility and its intersection with public charge. Don't worry if it sounds like Greek. We're going to be breaking it down very simply. We'll bring it down so that everybody can understand it and we can enjoy the session with some practical examples. Okay, so stay tuned. Let me share my screen. I'm going to be sharing, I have a lot of documents I want to share with you. This first document is a document from USCIS, directly from the US government, and it's entitled Inadmissibility and Waivers. If you are coming into the United States on a visa, or you are trying to do something called an adjustment of status, okay? Now, if you're coming into the US, you can come in two main ways. You're coming in either on an immigrant visa or a non-immigrant visa. There are other ways to come into the US, like a parole. You can come in with a parole, but let's look at the general ways. You are either, let me even add that some people come in without inspection, without admission. So they jump walls, border walls, they swim, they cross rivers and enter the US. It's called entry without inspection. We're not talking about those things, but let's talk about the general ways people enter the US. Two main ways. Either you're coming in as an immigrant visa, or you're coming in as a non-immigrant. You're coming in on a non-immigrant visa. That's what I should say. You're coming in either on an immigrant visa or on a non-immigrant visa. An immigrant visa means that you're coming in with something called a Form I-551 stamp in your passport, and once you enter, you are a lawful permanent resident. You are admitted as a green card holder. In 3 weeks, a month, you get your green card in the mail. This comes after an employment or a job or your family member has petitioned for you. Okay, now you can come in as with an immigrant visa, and when you come in, you become a green card holder, or you're coming in on a non-immigrant visa, such as a B2 visa, or as a student, an F1 visa. Okay, now the other thing is that if you already inside the US, then you can apply for something called adjustment of status. Adjustment of status is the process where you're changing your immigration status from a non-immigrant to become an immigrant. Meaning you're a non-immigrant, you're now trying to immigrate and you are applying for a green card inside the United States. Okay, if you are what we call inadmissible, then you cannot be granted a visa. You also cannot be given a green card unless you are able to challenge that ground of inadmissibility, or you file something called a waiver if you qualify for a waiver. Some grounds of inadmissibility you cannot waive. For example, generally, if you make a false claim to US citizenship. Yesterday, I was at the DMV, the driver motor vehicle, the licensing for Virginia. And when I went to effect my name change, and there's a portion on the form that will ask you, are you a US citizen? Do you want to vote in the federal elections? And that's one of the places where they get a lot of people, because some people are tempted to write yes, and then they go and vote in federal. That's right there, even without voting. Claiming that you are a US citizen is called a false claim to US citizenship. Usually it must be done to get a benefit under federal law. Won't go into all of that, but that's an example of an almost non or unwaivable inadmissibility, false claim to US citizenship. There's a lot of them. Some of them have ways in which you can ask the government that, please forgive me, waive this inadmissibility. And as always, law is like math. There's always a formula. The formula will be your eligibility criteria. Do you qualify even to apply for a certain type of waiver or not? Okay, so now let me put this on here. So inadmissibility means that you cannot, maybe it's better I read it, let's look directly from this, you can understand. So what is inadmissibility? Individuals who are inadmissible, they are not by law permitted to enter or remain in the US. You are inadmissible. The INA sets forth grounds of inadmissibility. Now look at this. There's inadmissibility due to health. So your health can make you inadmissible. And that is one of the strategies that President Trump's administration is expanding to prevent people from entering the United States. As I mentioned, on the two-track enforcement system, block entries, deport immigrants. And so on all two fronts, there's the action, right? And one of the things he's doing is that he's expanding what it means to be inadmissible due to health. I'm going to explain it a little bit more, because there's a few things that we have to straighten out there. The inadmissibility due to health is set by statute. You have to have something called a Class A type of disease, usually which is a disease of public health significance, or you don't have certain vaccines. We'll go over some of that. But what he's trying to do is now tie certain other types of diseases that do not make you inadmissible, tied to something called a public charge rule. Now look at the second ground of inadmissibility. So number one, you can't be inadmissible due to health. In fact, in the past, if you had HIV/AIDS, you were inadmissible, but that changed. I think it changed. What was it in 2004? I don't remember the year, but it changed. Let me see if I can pull it up. HIV/AIDS inadmissibility. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that changed a long time. Okay, 2010. It was in 2010, and the US removed HIV from the list of communicable diseases that would prevent you from getting a visa or would prevent you from entering the United States. Okay. Now, let's say that you can be inadmissible due to health grounds if you have a communicable disease like syphilis or gonorrhea or active tuberculosis. Let's go to second ground, inadmissibility due to health, criminal reasons. Third is due to national security reasons. Fourth, due to the likelihood of becoming a public charge, due to lack of labor certification, due to fraud or misrepresentation, inadmissibility due to prior removals, and or unlawful presence, and miscellaneous grounds of inadmissibility. We're going to be focusing on Unit 1 and Unit 4, health and public charge. Now let's go to health. Okay, so if you have a communicable disease of public health significance, then you are said to have a class A type of disease. As I mentioned, in things like infectious leprosy, infectious syphilis, active tuberculosis, lymphogranuloma. Okay, those seeking immigrant status, if you fail to receive, number 2, necessary vaccines against vaccine-preventable diseases, you are inadmissible. Okay, so if you are supposed to get certain types of maybe a vaccine against polio, I have the list of vaccines people are supposed to get. If you don't get those vaccines, then you are inadmissible. Those who have had a physical or mental disorder with associated harmful behavior or harmful behavior that is likely to reoccur. So you've had physical or mental disorder, you are somebody who has a mental disorder and you go around hurting people. It's associated with harmful behavior likely to occur, and this is going to threaten the welfare and safety of people or others. You are inadmissible. In the United States, a civil sergeant must make the assessment. Okay, yeah, they'll make the assessment. Remember, you are supposed to, if you're going to be doing an immigrant visa, then there's going to be a panel physician who will do your medicals for you. They're going to be filling out 4 main forms, the DS-3026 with a bunch of other forms. They'll review and submit on something called the e-medical system. And then the consular officer will review and see, do you have any concerning medical issue that will make you unable to be given a visa? Okay, so if you have that, if you are also number 4, you're a drug abuser or addict, then you cannot come into the US because they're going to be doing the test. So you cannot go and lie and say, oh, I'm not a drug abuser. They have the checks that they're doing. That's why you go and do the medicals. If you are outside the US, you'll do the medical exam. If you're inside the US trying to do an adjustment of status, you do the form I-693 medical exam also. Okay, let's move on. If you are a drug, you have drug substance abuse or addiction, which is medically called dependence to any of the substances listed in Controlled Substance Act, Section 202, it can make you inadmissible. We won't go into, all the drugs, and I think we've done this in the past. Now, let me go to very quickly. Number 4, inadmissibility due to likelihood of becoming a public charge. We're going to connect these 2 grounds of inadmissibility, so please stick with us. A person is inadmissible if he or she is likely to become a public charge. Who's a public charge? This is somebody who is primarily dependent on the government for subsistence. It means that you don't like to work, or you cannot, more like I should say, maybe you cannot work based on or sometimes even you're just not able to. There's some poverty, you can't afford certain things, and it could be due to health reasons or some other grounds, and you cannot work, and so you have to ask the government for money, for food, for you just need the government's help to be able to live. There are other people that provide everything for themselves. Those people do not depend on the US government. In fact, they contribute to the US government. But there are some other people that need the US government's help to be able to get food, to be able to live, to be able to get medical care. Okay. I'm sorry. Now, if you are likely to become a burden on the government in the future, then you cannot get a visa, you cannot get a green card. If you are somebody that the government feels like you're going to be a leech, you see, I always say this, in life, the US government is just like anybody, any ordinary person. The US government also wants people who will benefit the US government or the country. So if you are coming into the US and you are an Elon Musk, you are inventing something like another type of Tesla, which is maybe some airspace machine or even an airplane that people can now start packing in their homes, and you're going to help make the US very competitive in the international global market, then they want you. But if you are coming and you cannot buy breakfast or eat breakfast without getting help, then the government doesn't want you. The government, the US government also wants good things. They want people that are going to contribute and make sure that the US also succeeds, because the US is in competition with other nations. That's how it is, right? So everybody wants to advance and so wants to associate themselves with people who are progressing. That's why they say the poor man has no friends. Very unfortunate. You see, the US is even exhibiting that. Okay, so if you are somebody that you are likely to become a burden or a leech, or you're just going to bother the government, then the government doesn't want you. They're not going to give you a visa. And which is why a lot of people will go for a B2 visa. And these are some of the assessments that the consular officer will make and say, oh, you are not able to demonstrate sufficient ties. Sometimes it's because you look like you're going to become a public charge. You see, so they'll deny you the visa and give you the 214B denial. Or you're coming in as a green card holder and they look at the totality of the circumstances and they're like, this guy in about 2 years, he's going to become a burden on the US government. I'm sorry, we cannot grant you the visa. You are inadmissible due to becoming a public charge. I'm sorry. And they'll deny your visa until you are able to overcome that ground of inadmissibility. So what the consular officer does, or the adjudication officer, is that they are going to be considering your health. Number one, what does this person's health look like? Does he have some type of illness which is very expensive to treat and takes, it lasts a long time? Maybe a type of cancer which is very rare, very expensive to treat. Some of the drugs, I was talking to a friend this week, and they have some type of cancer. Some injections that they're supposed to take is about $600 a month, and insurance doesn't cover it. Some also, every 2 weeks, they have to buy drugs, sometimes $1,200, because they have a very aggressive type of cancer, or they're doing chemo, and there's things that are not being covered by the insurance. Some of these diseases are very, in fact, I spoke with one person some time ago, and her husband had insurance, and they had to undergo some treatment, and the treatment cost about $400,000. Insurance said they won't cover it. Insurance is very interesting. Is the day you need them, that's when they'll read you terms and conditions and tell you what they don't cover. Because again, everybody's trying to make the most money or whatever. So you keep paying every month, but I'm sorry, when you need them, they'll tell you, we don't cover this, we don't cover that. People have very, very expensive diseases. Some diseases, I'll tell you, are very, very expensive. So they're going to look at your health. That's the first thing they're looking at. They'll look at your family status. They'll look at your age. They'll look at your assets, employment history, education, to decide whether this guy, do we have hope for him, or he's just going to become a burden and bother the whole country with his, I need this, I need that. So they'll look at your health. How healthy are you? Do you have some type of disease which is an expensive disease? Expensive to treat? Will you need institutionalization, where you're going to need to be, maybe institutionalized for a long time? The government has to help you. What's your family status? Do you have a husband who is very wealthy, or you just have your grandma alive and your grandma doesn't work, and you have a disease which is expensive to treat? They're looking at those things. I'm not the one saying it. This is what the US government looks at practically. They'll look at your age. If you are 30, it's like, okay, that's a good factor because it means you can work. If you are 30 and you are very strong, you're healthy, you have a young wife, you guys can work, that's a good factor for them. What are your assets looking like? Do you have bank accounts, investment accounts in Switzerland, maybe $3 billion? or you have, investment properties in Germany, and it's like, oh, this guy looks like he's really, this guy is not going to become a public charge. I mean, he owns properties in Ghana, Nigeria, he owns businesses. He's likely to succeed when he comes to the US. And so let's give him the visa. What's your employment history? Are you hopping around every 2 months to get a new job? It's like, this guy, we're seeing you too. When you come, we may not have hope for you. And your education, are you highly educated or not so educated? Do you have any technical skills? So they look at the totality of your circumstances. Then they'll determine that this person is likely to become dependent on the government for his day-to-day bread. If you're going to be depending on the US government for your day-to-day bread, I am very sorry, my brother, you are going to be denied a US visa. Okay. Now let me move on to my next document that we're using for actually let me just go over this. Let's go over this. So we just talked about the public health, the public charge, what public charge means, and what medical, being inadmissible based on medical grounds means. Okay, so what we're doing here now is that we're going to be discussing how medical health based inadmissibility intersects with the public charge rule. And the focus of this is because of the recent Department of State's guidance, which has been given to consular officers, meaning this, this is really important at this time. It bridges two grounds of inadmissibility: health, which traditionally contagious diseases, defects, disability, and then the public charge rule, which is the dependency risk. Are you going to be depending on the US government, as we said? Okay, now let's go here. Let's look at how health and medical issues play a bigger role in inadmissibility decisions and what you must know. Let's share my screen here. This is going to be from the website, I'm sorry, from my computer. So let me see if I can share. Let me share here. Okay, let's share chapter 2 of the USCIS policy manual. Let's use this one. Okay, you guys can see my screen. Now look at this. Medical examination and examination record and vaccination record. I'm sorry. Now, purpose is to determine whether you are inadmissible based on health-related grounds. And the medical exam documentation, it indicates whether you are either something called Class A or you have a Class B medical condition. And the vaccination record will show whether you've complied with all vaccination requirements. Okay, now look at this. Let's go over Class A and B conditions and their impact on admissibility. So Class A and B conditions are defined in the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, the regulations. Now, Class A conditions, those are medical conditions that make you inadmissible. You cannot get a visa, you cannot enter the US, and you are ineligible for a visa or adjustment of status. A Class A medical condition is one, communicable disease of public health significance, and this is defined by HHS regulations. Number 2, there is a failure to present documentation of having received vaccinations against vaccine-preventable diseases. Okay, let me go here. Why did I do? Okay, now number 3, you have a present or past physical disorder. You can have a physical disorder which is associated with harmful behavior or harmful behavior that is likely to repeat itself or likely to recur. Or you have a present or past mental disorder. So, you can have either a physical disorder that is associated with, where you get this this physical, where you have a physical disorder that is likely to, you cause harm to other people, and it can happen in the future or it can happen later. Okay, and so let me give an example. So somebody who has a dangerous behavior when they are impaired. An example could be somebody with alcohol use disorder. Maybe they have multiple DUI arrests, they have injuries, high risk behavior, or someone with some type of let's stick with that. or somebody who has some severe uncontrolled impulse control disorder, you engage in property destruction or aggression, you throw things, you hit people when you have a crisis. Okay. All right, that's an example. Or you have a present or past mental disorder, something like maybe you have severe schizophrenia, you assault people during your psychotic episode. That could be a severe, no, let me say it's just a present or past. Maybe you had it 10 years ago. It's likely to happen again. This could make you inadmissible. Or in number 3, you have a class A condition is somebody who could have drug abuse or addiction. Okay, now let's move to class B conditions. These are defined as physical or mental health conditions, diseases or disability, serious in degree or permanent in nature. These are medical conditions, but they are not enough to make you inadmissible. It represents a departure from normal health, meaning you are not very healthy. You know, you are not the normal healthy person. But at the same time, it doesn't rise to the level of a class A condition. Let's read what it says. It says, this may be a medical condition that, although not rendering an applicant inadmissible, represents a departure from normal health or well-being that may be significant enough to, one, it can interfere. It means you have some type of disease that is serious enough to prevent you from taking care of yourself, prevent you from attending school, prevent you from working. 2, or it can require extensive medical treatment or institutionalization in the future. So it looks like the Trump administration is using some of these new diseases that they said they're going to be looking at. They are fitting it into class B conditions. And even though the class B conditions do not make you inadmissible, the class B condition can make you likely to be a public charge. Do you see the formula or the connection? So the class B condition in and of itself cannot rise to the level of class A, which makes you inadmissible. But if it's such that it will prevent you from working, then you are likely to become a public charge, looking at all the other circumstances. Do you have enough money to pay for your condition? Are you going to be able to work? They'll look at all these things, your age, your other things. And then that could make you inadmissible. So even if you are not inadmissible based on medical inadmissibility, they are going to catch you in another net, which is the ground of the public charge rule. Okay, now look at this. Let me connect it to in fact, KFF Health News. They are the people that actually broke this news. They are the people that saw the new guidance that was sent to the US Embassy, talking about the fact that consular officers should not give people who have certain medical conditions visas, because those people are likely to become a public charge or a burden on the government. Look at this. Now, foreigners seeking visas to live in the US might be rejected if they have certain medical conditions, including diabetes, obesity, and the Thursday directive from the Trump administration. Excuse me. The guidance issued in a cable or document the State Department sent to embassy and consular officers. This was examined by KFF Health News. It directs officers to deem applicants ineligible to enter the US for several new reasons, including likelihood they might rely on public benefits. Now look at this. The guidance says that such people could become a public charge, a potential drain on US resources because of their health issues or age. Okay, let me go down. I want to see the types of, okay. This is what KFF News, said. It said, the cable said, you must consider an applicant's health. The cable reads, certain medical conditions, including, but not limited to, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, cancers, diabetes, metabolic diseases, neurological diseases, and mental health conditions can require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of care. Now look, the cable also encourages visa officers to consider other conditions like obesity, which it notes can cause asthma, sleep apnea, high blood pressure in the assessment of whether an immigrant could become a public charge and therefore should be denied entry into the US. All of these can require expensive long-term care, the cable reads. Okay. Another thing is that it went on to say that visa officers should look at whether the applicant has the means to pay for medical treatment without help from the US government. They'll say, do you have enough financial resources to cover the cost of such care over your entire expected lifespan without seeking public cash assistance or long-term institutionalization at government expense? Another thing is, let me see. If the cable goes on, let me read this part. The guidance also directs visa officers to develop their own thoughts about what could lead to some sort of medical emergency or sort of medical costs in the future. Okay, now the guidance also directs visa officers to consider, they're going to be considering the health of your family members, including children or older parents. Do any, guys, if you're enjoying this session, please drop USA or the US flag. Let me make sure you guys can see me and hear me good as we keep chatting. Drop USA, US flag in the comments, please. Do any of the dependents have disabilities? So maybe Down syndrome or severe autism or some other type of disability, chronic medical conditions or other special needs. And special needs is what I meant by that. I'm sorry, not disability, special needs. And require care such that the applicant, you cannot maintain employment. So if you have a child who has Down syndrome, for instance, which is a special need, and your parent will not be able to work because or the applicant will not be able to work because his son has Down syndrome and requires a lot of care, then you are likely to be inadmissible under the public charge rule, because they know that under the health ground rule, having Down syndrome, for instance, is not a class A condition, and so they cannot use that to prevent you from coming into the US. Okay, so that's the cable that KFF Health News shared. Let me go to the statute. I'm going to show you guys the actual, I hope I have it here. Oh yeah, I do have it here. I'm sorry, it's here. Yeah, it's not on the, it's on my computer directly. Let me share the screen. Let's see here. Let's share the screen. Okay, there you go. This is the Code of Federal Regulations. This is where you'll find the inadmissibility based on health grounds, the definitions. Okay, now look at this. It is in section 34, title. Hold on, let me pull this up here. Section, so title 42, chapter 1, section 34.2. Okay, look at this. Communicable disease of public health significance. And then look at some of the diseases here, syphilis, infectious, all that. And then I wanted to see if I had the vaccines. Okay, look at the list of vaccines that you need. It says class A medical notification. So you need to have, you need to have been vaccinated against mumps, measles, rubella, polio, tetanus, diphtheria, toxoids, pertussis, Haemophilus influenza type B, hepatitis B, and any other vaccinations recommended. Okay, then we come here, drug abuse or addiction. It explains also the physical or mental disorder and behavior associated and all that. Then we come to class B, which says that, this is the one that doesn't necessarily make you inadmissible, but it can be considered under the public charge rule because it could be, a serious it can be mental or physical condition. Or look at the definition according to statute. It says class B medical notification. Medical notification of a physical or mental health condition, disease, or disability, serious in degree or permanent in nature. There are some of the diseases that are serious and permanent. Once you have it, what people call a lifestyle disease, it would only take a miracle from God to get healed, because some of the diseases, when you have them, you just have to manage it for the rest of your life. So they're talking about some of those diseases there. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, so for when it comes to the public charge and medical risk intersection, we've talked about what public charge is and the fact that health can feed into the public charge analysis. If an officer considers that you have health issues, it may not be class A, where you have active syphilis or infectious tuberculosis, but you could have cancer. And if they look at the type of, the type of health, the cost of healthcare you're going to need, and they look at your assets and how much money you have in the bank, then they could determine that you are likely to become a public charge, and you may not be able to cover your financial and medical bills. And so you are likely to depend on the government. Okay. Now let's talk about the fact that, well, let me just mention that, as I mentioned, class A makes you inadmissible based on health grounds. Class B does not make you inadmissible based on health grounds, but it can trigger a public charge analysis. Everybody's case triggers a public charge analysis, but if you have a class B, which is a disease which is permanent or, very serious in nature, you can cause them to scrutinize other factors and see whether you are a public charge. Okay. So the thing about having certain types of conditions is that, will it make you more likely to depend on the government in the future? So does your condition require long-term medical treatment? Do you have the income to cover that treatment? Do you have insurance? Will the condition limit your ability to go out and work and earn money? Is it a condition that's progressive or is degenerative? You guys, if you follow our social media, remember we shared some information. 2019, when Trump was in power, he signed a presidential proclamation that restricted immigrants or people who had immigrant visas from entering the country, the US, unless they could show that they had insurance or could get insurance within 30 days of entering the US. Okay, so again, this seems like they are, trying to bring that back. That proclamation, it was blocked in court, and then it was later revoked by President Biden when he came into power. So it did not go into effect. Now, if you have a class B, which is not necessarily class A, but a serious type of disease or health issue, you have higher medical needs, higher costs, and you are very highly likely to be seen as a public charge or somebody who's likely to become a public charge. Okay, let's go here. Let me see if, yes, and then we can take a few questions. Yes, I do have a bunch of other things we could discuss, but maybe we can just talk about general, other things, and see if we can also take some questions that some of you may have. There's been obviously a lot of, as always, there's always something new in immigration. There's always something happening. There are continuing raids. There's a lot of arrests happening at US immigration interviews, so make sure that before you go for any interview, then you've spoken with an attorney and you've understood what's going on with your case. Now, let me tell you guys, next week, the very exciting news I told you. Next week, I'm actually having a former immigration judge join us on AK Poku Law Live, a Friday session at 1 p.m. This is somebody who's been a lawyer for over 30 years. He was an immigration judge until President Trump's administration. We've been posting about it. They've laid off a bunch of immigration judges. So he was one of the people that got affected by the restructuring, whatever they are doing, and he will be joining us on the live session. We're going to be discussing what you guys need to know before you go into immigration court, what you need to know, asylum, your application, how not to make certain mistakes in immigration court. I'm very excited and I'm looking forward to it because there's a lot of people that don't know what to do when they get the notice to appear, which means that they have to appear before an immigration judge. Okay, so we're going to be doing that next week. Make sure you set your calendars and join us. Yeah, there is, the government, I would say the government shutdown also ended, I believe was it Wednesday night? It ended on Wednesday night after 43 long days of the US government shutdown. It's ended. Federal agencies are back working. It's going to take some time for them to work through the backlogs that have been built. For many of them, it was 6 weeks off. So it will take time for them to, get back to normal. You guys know immigration, things were going on as always, but obviously the backlog, the shutdown still affected perhaps in some way, even though, because many of these immigration agencies are fee funded. So it didn't affect immigration too much. Like USCIS, it was business as usual. They were still working because it's very largely fee funded. Okay. All right, guys, let me see if we have a I'm sorry, I've had a really bad cough this week. Let's see if we have anything here. Rolly Roy Ross says, hi, how much is your consultation fee? Rolly Roy Ross, please call us. Our number is right here and speak with one of our representatives and they can book a spot for you. Our consultation fees, I think, start at, if I'm not mistaken, either 200 or 250, but they're so worth it, you guys. When people do our consultations, by the time they leave, they always tell me. You always have the people that very rare, because in a year we probably talk to thousands of people in a year, and you'll get in out of the thousands of people that do the consultations, you can get one or two people that will still whine or complain. But I would say 99.9% of the people that do our consultations always say that this is so great. They are better positioned. They know what to do. We're guiding them. They feel much better after they speak with us because that's the point of a consultation. We don't just come and, act disinterested. Our consultations are really good. And I must say so myself. Sometimes we'll have two attorneys on the consultation deliberating with you and making sure you have the best care. Sometimes it's one, but it's honestly like the power of 10 attorneys. So you're in very good hands. We take notes when you call us so that the lawyers can review your case, and then when they meet you, it's easier for them to be able to help you. But yeah, I'm usually on many of our consultations myself, and you'll find that it's very, very worth it. So yes, please feel free to call us 802-780-0564. I'm sorry. We do both in person. We've had some people come into the office this morning. We've had some in-person meetings for those who are in Virginia. Sometimes we have people who are from California, even New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware. They drive all the way to our offices just for our consultations. So you can imagine how great these consults are. You will hear exactly what you need to hear, and you'll know what the exact next steps you need to take are and how we can help you. And it goes from there. So we do in person, we do phone consultations, and we do video consultations as well. Okay. And then we have, let me see if we have any other questions on Instagram. Somebody said, how can apply a visa for USA? we share all these things in videos on our pages. All right, guys. Well, so just make sure that you guys are following us. KB says on TikTok, is it true that USCIS is arresting visa overseas at AOS interviews? I have an interview scheduled. Yes, we're getting reports of, from other attorneys who are saying that they are seeing this. I haven't, my law firm, we haven't personally experienced this yet. So, we've had our visa overstays approved. We've had our visa adjustment of status cases, visa overstays approved. So, we are still trying to figure out if this is some trend based on certain factors. And until we know more, we cannot say more. But yes, some attorneys on our attorney network, they are reporting, they are seeing this. But I have not personally, or this law firm hasn't personally had that experience yet, thankfully. But yeah, KB, feel free to set up a consult. Let's discuss your case, and then I'll let you know, based on also where you are, and then I can give you some advice based on, I can pull up some information from that field office and then help you. All right, guys. It has been a pleasure hosting you as always. There's still, all the all the raids still going on, ICE agents still going on, so there's still a lot we can cover on that. But no worries, I'm going to be seeing you guys next week. If you haven't already liked our pages across social media, AK Poku, make sure you're following, make sure you've hit that follow button and share this live session. People need to hear the information. Please, it's a very crucial time. Apenro says, I'm diabetic. I have an upcoming interview in January. Am I affected? Likely. Please set up a consult with us and we can discuss with you and tell you how you can prepare to overcome the public health, the public charge inadmissibility ground. Okay, I'm sorry. If you have diabetes or you are diabetic, you are not inadmissible under, it's not a class A disease. So you're not outrightly inadmissible, but it could be considered like a class B or just a very serious lifelong disease. So you have to be able to proactively prepare for that. So contact us and we see how we can help you get through that interview. Guys, I am thankful that you guys were able to join us for today's session. If you have enjoyed it, please just drop USA in the chat box. And then hopefully I'll see you all next week. We'll have former immigration judge, join us, and it's going to be fireworks. You have to be here. Make sure you set your calendar. Friday, 21st November, 1 p.m. across our social media platforms. I will come live on TikTok, but the judge is a much older person. He doesn't have TikTok. So we'll likely stream with him on the rest of the platforms, not on TikTok, but I will be here on TikTok. So probably as we speak, hopefully it might get into TikTok. Let's see how that goes. And then we'll have a great session. Thank you again. I wish you all a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys soon in our next video session next week. Take care. Bye-bye.